How we doing? How you doing?
I like your energy already.
Yeah. I wake up excited, just happy to be here, you know.
See, we're starting off on a great foot already. Like
yes,
the energy was just, it came out just like, yeah.
Yep.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, can't complain. I wake up excited. As long as I have breath in my body, everything else is a bonus. That's it. You know.
See, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, first off, thank you so much for being part of this week's Culture Meets Money. Much appreciated. We of course we always do like our little background, and we look up and I was like, yo, this guy's like for real.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate
I'm
it.
actually super excited about today's Culture Meets Money session for sure.
Thank you.
So quick introduction. I'm Sheena Allen. I'm the CEO and founder of CapWay, and we do a weekly series called Culture Meets Money. And today we have Mr. Ash Cash. So please introduce yourself.
Name is Ash Exantus, better known as Ash Cash, financial educator, author of 8 books, 4 of them are bestsellers. I teach people how to change their mindset in order to manage their money in a more effective way, and how to live their best life through financial education and entrepreneurship.
Got it. All right, so I took the time to definitely like read your background. Like it sounds like you've been hustling from like a young age.
Yeah,
like,
I came out hustling. You know, I'm originally from Harlem, so you know Harlem is the home of the hustlers. So I came out the womb trying to find a hustle. So yeah.
So yeah, and I was like, gosh, I'm talking about like all before teenage years, like getting it in. So if you won't mind giving us a quick background of like that story of coming up and you know being in Harlem, being an entrepreneur, kind of working your way up to where you are now.
Yeah, so I grew up low income, typical urban stories. So I'm the youngest of 3. I have a brother and a sister. My mom, was single mom, and so I started my grind. I was 8 years old packing bags at the local supermarket. So I grew up in the St. Nicholas houses in Harlem. 8 years old packing bags, realizing that we weren't my mother couldn't make ends meet on her one income, and so I was watching the other kids making money packing bags. So I decided to jump in that. Graduated from packing bags to selling mixtapes and T-shirts as a vendor on 125th Street. And then, I played basketball. So I kind of, was always either playing ball or trying to figure out some type of hustle. By the time I was 17, I got my first job working at a video store, rest in peace, Blockbuster Videos. I actually, had my first job at Blockbuster Videos. And so within about a year, I was promoted to assistant manager at Blockbusters. And I knew it wasn't but so far I could get, working at the video store. And so one day, one of the assistant managers came in and was like, listen, they're hiring for tellers at Chase Bank. Would you be interested in being a teller? I was like, there's nothing else I could do. And so I got a job. So I started my banking career when I was 19 years old. And the rest is sort of history. I did everything in banking. From teller to personal banker to private banker, meaning that I managed money for high net worth individuals who had $250,000 in investable assets up until $22 million was my wealthiest client. I was a branch manager, so I've opened de novo branches. So anytime they opened up a new branch in a new neighborhood, they kind of tapped me on the shoulder because I was good in marketing and opening up new branches. So I did about 4 or 5 of those. And then I was also a CEO of a credit union. So I ran a credit union for a short period of time. Around 2009, during the Great Recession, I realized that the passion wasn't there. When I started in banking, banking was a service. And so it switched from being a service and it was all about sales. And I didn't really like that. And so I decided to jump out and start teaching finance. And so I wound up writing my first book, Mind Right, Money Right, 10 Laws of Financial Freedom in 2009. And then just been on the, first volunteering, going to churches, jails, and teaching about financial education, but then just creating financial education as a full-time business. And so now, I'm the author of 8 books. 4 of them have been bestsellers. You know, I travel the country teaching about financial education and just helping people change their mindset to manage their money. And then so that, you know, that's where I am now. You know, I started a company, Mind Right Money Management, and so we have like online courses, you know, and just really, you know, I do a daily show. You know, I'm on television, radio, just anything I can do to help, you know, help my people. Like in the words of the Honorable Sean Carter, there's much bigger issues in the world I know, but I first had to take care of the world I know. You know. So.
Also, trust me, we're not going to finish this off until you drop a few bars, because I read now that if you're challenged, you will drop some bars.
All right, maybe. I don't know. I haven't dropped bars in a while, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not the hook. I'm coming back to that. All right, so let's kind of go back to the earlier times. Chase Bank, which is always interesting because of Chase's history. What was the biggest difference though that you saw in working with Chase and then with such a huge bank and then going over to a credit union? Because when you think of outside of even your larger metropolitan areas, a lot of people actually don't know. It was really funny because I'm from the South Mississippi, and a lot of people who are from larger areas, they don't realize that the larger banks aren't everywhere.
Right.
So a lot of people assume that like the Wells Fargo's, the Bank of America's, like they're just like, they're everywhere. Yeah. And a lot of places you have more like your regional banks, your credit unions, your community banks. But for you, what was the biggest difference that you saw in going from such a huge $1 trillion company like bank like Chase to a credit union?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I noticed was, I guess, access to capital, honestly, right? And so working at a big, large bank like Chase, I also realized that who we serve was different too, right? When you work for a commercial bank, the truth of the matter is that it's not really the consumer that's important. The most important person is businesses, right? And so we made most of our money through business loans, through small businesses in the area. And so we had access to more capital to provide to those businesses, working at a larger financial institution. When I went into the credit union space, it's a little different, right? Because number one, I now work for the people, right? So the people who deposit the money into the credit union, those are who I'm beholden to. And those are the people who need the loans more. But because I have to be careful, right? Because this is their money, I can't necessarily lend their money to them, right, without following certain types of protocols. So there was a lot more restriction working at a credit union than working at a bigger bank, because, I think with a bigger bank, there's certain guidelines, and the people who come into those banks will fit those guidelines for the most part, opposed to a credit union with the people who actually need the help. It's hard to be as risky as you want to be with, in a credit union, because you also there's a fine line between serving the people and then kind of putting their money in jeopardy. And so, there were a lot of times where I was able to help, right? Which always felt good. I was able to help when people come in and they needed these small micro loans. And because it was like the loan committee were people from the community. And so they were able to help, approve those loans. And so I think that the model, like anybody who, like my heart was in helping the community. And so the credit union, felt better for me, opposed to a big commercial bank where you're not really a name, you're really a number. You're really just a transaction, opposed to like in a credit union, like that's Miss Johnson who's asking you for $2,000 so she could pay her rent, and Miss Johnson because she comes in every day, right? And so it gives it that, that community feel, and if everything lines up the right way, you're able to help them more than you can, with a commercial bank.
So I think we could have a whole hour conversation on like what's wrong with the traditional banking system.
Oh, absolutely.
If you could kind of point out maybe just 2 or 3 things that from your experience, even working in the banking system all the way to what you do now.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Black and brown, like what would you say is the top 3 things that's wrong with the traditional banking system today?
So number one, the people in the community do not benefit from that system, right? Because number one, so I'll give you a prime example. Like when I mentioned the commercial banks, right? The traditional banking system with the branches, they're not for the everyday person. They're for the business owner. In our community, unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, the business owner doesn't live in the community, nor does the business owner look like the community, right? And so what happens is you have this business that's in the community that so all of the deposits that are coming from the community are now being put together to be able to lend to this business that's in the community that's not necessarily, giving money back into the community. So I think that's number one, is that system is kind of broken because, it's still kind of siphoning money from the community, right? Number one. Number two, if people understand what CRA is, right? Community Reinvestment Act, there's a CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, that says that if you are, managing money, or if you have a branch in that community, you should be giving back to that community. Well, right, there's loopholes around it. So what winds up happening is that if I'm running a branch at Chase, and then there's this big nonprofit organization that happens to be in my community who really is probably not doing anything in my community, well, that's where the money is going. And so, in the guise of it's supporting the community, so now it's a check, and they get to operate in our community, but really this big nonprofit organization is not really giving back to the people, and so it's this big conglomerate situation that that system is wrong, right? But then also number 3, I got 10, but you said 4.
Right.
So
it's funny. Somebody come and said it was designed that way. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
was designed that way. So
absolutely,
there's a big difference in it being broken and it being designed that way. So it was designed that way.
Absolutely. And then number 3, the people who don't have were the people who we charged the most fees, right?
Yes.
And so, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get out the business, because I got to know the community, right? And so imagine this, right? Imagine, I'm gonna say Miss Johnson because I used her before, right? Miss Johnson, she's on a fixed income, she has direct deposit, and a little mistake happened, right? Where now, her account is overdrawn by $2. And so somehow the geniuses at traditional banks realize that, if she's overdrawn $2, and but she has multiple transactions coming in, let's pay the largest transaction first, so that way it could overdraw her completely, and now all the other transactions become overdrawn. If you flipped it though, if you paid the lowest transactions first, those would have got paid, she wouldn't have been overdrawn, and then the largest transaction would have been overdrawn, and then now you would have just charged a 1 overdraft fee. But somehow, they created the system where the largest check comes first, and then the rest of them get overdrawn. So now Miss Johnson is paying $160 in overdraft fees on a fixed income, and then now when her check comes back in, she's short, and it happens over and over and over again. In fact, I remember there was a study that said that I want to say it was the largest banks made $4 billion, right? In overdraft fees. And so I think that was the worst, having people come in that telling you, hey, I can't afford it, can you reverse a fee? And then because you're within this big organization, you can't even, as the manager of the bank, you can't even reverse fees. And so that's number 3. And then number 4, the people who could afford the fees, we waive everything for them. Yep. Right. And so the person with the high balances, the person who has the business accounts and things of that nature, who could literally afford it, they get all of their fees wiped out. And so, I think that was sort of like the wake up call for me. And I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense. How can we be saying that we're for the community and not really provide to the community. So that's what I think was wrong. With the traditional banking system. The truth of the matter too is that with traditional banking systems, because they still have brick and mortar, and people have to physically walk into those branches, they need to pay for those branches. And so how are they going to pay for them? They're going to nickel and dime, every single person, and then that's how they're making their money. So I think those are, some few ways where there's a disconnect within that system.
I feel like I say this like every session, but the stupidest banking fee to me is like the minimum balance fee.
I agree. Yeah.
If I don't have enough money in my account, you're charging me a minimum balance fee for not having money.
Having money in the account. Right.
Stupidest fee
ever.
I
agree.
CapWay. So of course we're a mobile bank.
Yeah.
And it was so important to me as a founder. And I was like, we're not going to do overdraft fees.
Yep.
We're not going to do minimum balance fees. We're not going to charge those monthly fees. I just think they're like by far the stupidest fees ever.
Yeah.
I grew up in a banking desert, which is by definition is a radius where there's no banks, which probably be a small local bank that's not going to have as many services as you see from the bigger banks. And so I grew up where my great-grandmother and my grandmother, they kept their money in their house.
Yep.
So they didn't even use banks. So people see it on TV. I'm like, I grew up around that. Where like, my grandmother kept her money in the house. And Jackson, which is the city right where I'm outside of Terry, there's 3.5 predatory options for every one bank.
Yep.
And the argument that I have with people is, they automatically say title loans, check cash, and payday lending. They title them as predatory financial options. And I get why, I think the number is like for every payday loan, if you take out a $300 payday loan, you end up paying roughly like $800 to $1,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I get it. I know the numbers, but I think when people don't understand that audience, or they don't understand people who come from those areas, that's where I came from, is people act like someone's going to run out and get a payday loan because, just let me happen to go get a payday loan that I'm going to charge 500% interest rate on.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but a lot of times it's between that or not eating, my life being turned off. Check cashing, I use an example is I was speaking with someone who was unbanked and she used check cashing, and she was like, well, I paid $10 when I get paid to get my check cash. And I was saying like, have you thought about getting a bank account? Let's talk about getting banked. And she said, if I go get a bank account, and if I run out of money or if I go into overdraft, I'm being charged $35 every time I go into overdraft.
Yep.
He said, well, when I go pay my $10 to get my check cash, when I run out of money, I'm out of money. I ain't got to worry about somebody charging me $36.
Right.
So it was really important for me to really understand how and why people did some of the things that they did. It sounds crazy to a lot of people until you talk to or you've been in the shoes of people who've done that. So outside of the system being that way, which is actually true, another part that comes is financial literacy, which I definitely want to get into. I'll put my opinion on it, but I want to kick it to you. From your experience and what you've been doing, what do you see as the biggest barrier, especially for Black and Brown, when it comes to financial education?
Yeah, I think number one, because money isn't, financial education isn't taught in school, because it isn't talked about in the household. A lot of times, by the time they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? So by the time it's time to try to educate, someone on something that they've been doing for years, been passed down from generation to generation, it's hard to change that mindset, right? They're stuck on the mindset, even if you have done a good job in trying to convince them as to why this works this way. People have their belief systems and they're stuck in their belief systems, number one. And because when it comes to financial education, it's really, it's like changing their whole paradigm, right? Like when, like for instance, people are told, work hard for money, go to school, work hard, get a good job, and then that's it. But, at the end of the day, there's other components to how you build wealth, how you manage your money that makes you financially free, but it's foreign to people, you know? And so I think that's one of the biggest barriers is that it's trying to shock the system. It's trying to tell people to do stuff that they've been conditioned to doing, things that they've been passed down from their parents or lack of, their parents, or things that they're telling their kids. But then also too, with financial education in the beginning, just like anything that you start to do in the beginning, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, right? It's going to take discipline for you to get to that space. How do you tell somebody who's already feel like they've been sacrificing to sacrifice more for something that they see immediately, right? And so that's one of the issues too with financial education, because I'm saying, listen, take 10% each check, put it in an account, and then eventually you'll have this money. So if an emergency happens, they're like, listen, I'm living check to check right now. How are you telling me to take 10%? I can't do that. And so because of the cycle that they're already in, and they already struggling, and they already feel like they're in a hole. And so me telling them to do something different feels like I'm telling them to dig themselves further in a hole, and they rather stick to something that they know opposed to trying something different. So I think those are the two barriers that I've seen in my work as it relates to financial education.
Yeah, I'll pick it back off the first one first, which is the school. And it's not taught in school at all. And it's, I actually made a tweet yesterday, and I was like, when you think about our school system, especially the public school system, what we're taught, we're still teaching kids in history class that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
Right.
So we definitely ain't teaching them, how to properly do taxes and prepare for your first home, and you should do this. So the system itself is completely messed up. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I see a lot is we also have to go back into the fact of like black tax. And I think the rest of the world discounts black tax, but of course, as black people, we deal with it.
Right.
So you get the millennial, the Gen Z that's coming up, and it's like, I finally got that good job. But like, in your case, like you said, I started working at Chase. I'm sure making, some good money. And you probably the first person in your family to like make that type of money.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, like the traditional financial world or the traditional financial literacy way is telling you got to, do 10% of this and you got to do X. But they discount the fact that as a black man or as a, somebody who's making more money than he's probably ever made or seen, or probably more than his parents have ever made, you got 10 people in your family now that's like, can you help me pay my light bill?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Your little brother's like, can you help me, do football count?
Right.
Your grandma who was like, grandma on a fixed income. I would sure love if I could do it. Most of us are going to be like, I got you.
Right. Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
I'm going to do it. I have friends and I know people who make six figures, but they're the first person in their family to ever see six figures. And they end up living paycheck to paycheck because they're taking care of
everybody
else.
Yeah.
So I see that. So the schools, I see the black tax. I think a lot of the rest of the world doesn't understand, and it's discounted for us. And then the third thing for us is that I see a lot of is it's just not relatable.
Right.
The things that they tell us to do is it doesn't really work. So an example I'll give is budgeting.
Yeah.
We both know the story of how they tell you should budget. You should do X, Y, Z. And I get into these big meetings a lot of times with people, and I'm always like, so you want me to budget, put this much money to this category, this much money to this category. And I'm all for budgeting, so I'm not saying I'm against it.
Yeah.
But then I go back and I say, well, have you ever met someone who lives paycheck to paycheck?
Right.
Oh, sure, yeah. I said, I've seen somebody make $10 last a whole week.
Right.
They're budgeting by default. Like they're not budgeting because you told them to, or because that's what financial literacy said. They're budgeting because I gotta find a way to keep my head above water.
The stress is right.
Yeah. So I've seen that, but I think it's time that we also have to make it more relatable, and we have to get real with ourselves.
Yeah.
I moved here to Atlanta recently. Not from here, from the South, but I've lived, from everywhere. I've lived in New York, by the way.
Oh, NY, that's I live in Atlanta now too.
but New York, it was snowing in like, I'm from the South. I couldn't do snow in April. It just wasn't my thing. But so but I'm here in Atlanta, and it's crazy because a lot of times, and I won't say it's just Black people, but I know it's something because I see it. I witness it. It's I don't even about to say it was priorities. I'm honestly not quite sure how to put it, but we are so quick to go buy like the nice car.
Yes.
But not have like the finances to support the nice cars. Or
yes.
We go get the nice clothes, and we don't always have the money to support the nice clothes.
Yes.
But my grandmother used to always have this saying of, it's hard to blame somebody for something that they don't know.
Yes.
And people like you, people like me, and a lot of more people I know that's working towards it, is we got to figure out like, how do we get the answer to people that look like us?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you've written 8 books at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've done a lot of feedback. You've done a lot, with a lot of things that you're doing, but where have you felt like we have to begin? Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I wrote a book called The Wake Up Call: Financial Lessons Learned from 444, which is based on Jay-Z's album, and that was one of the reasons why I decided that I would become like the hip hop financial advisor almost, right? Because the saying, put the medicine in the candy, right? And I think that a lot of times people who are trying to teach people things teach them from their level of understanding, right? So like you know why somebody should manage their money the right way or have an emergency fund or things of that nature. Me being in the business, I understand why people should do things the way they do them. But in order for me to be effective, I have to meet people where they are, right? And so if I want to teach somebody that they need life insurance, that they need an estate plan, if they need a will, or they need to, I'm not going to start there because they don't understand that, right? I'm going to start with what they need, right? They might say, hey, how do you fix your credit? Okay, so let me tell you how you fix your credit. And then in that conversation, then I could start talking about all of the other things. And so for me, I think hip hop has been a great equalizer in teaching financial literacy because they'll listen to, their favorite rapper, right? And so if the Migos say, I don't know the verse. He said, you fumble it, I take the bag and I something like that, right?
Yeah.
So if the Migos saying that you tumble the bag, I take the bag, flip it, and I take the bag and flip it, then I can actually say, oh, do you understand what he's saying? He's talking about compound interest. So you're like, compound interest? How is that compound interest? Well, this is what he means by you fumbling. You took the bag, you took the money, and you lost the money, right? You had the money, you didn't do anything with it. He took the bag and he didn't fumble it. He flipped it, meaning that he doubled his money. And so how did he double his money? He invested in an income producing asset, or he did. So I think that using a language that people understand and then infusing the lessons within what they understand is where we start. And so when I wrote 444, when I wrote the Wake Up Call, and I realized that Jay-Z said, hey, what's better than, blowing your money in a strip club? Credit. And so, right. And so when he said that, it's like, oh, okay, let me tell you why credit is important. When he says financial freedom's our only hope, let me tell you why that's important. When he says, what's better than one billionaire too, he talk about group economics. Let me tell you why that's important. And so I think piggybacking off of where people are already, and using those, using lessons based on where people are, has been very, very effective. Even I wrote a book called Hustlenomics that I actually give away for free if you go to hustlenomics.com. And, it's based on Nipsey Hussle, right? And so when Nipsey Hussle, he's all his lyrics, he's literally giving you an MBA course. He's giving you a business course. When he tells you, I integrated, I did vertical integration. Like, what is vertical integration, right? When he says, $500,000, on my life, like, what does he mean by that? What is he meaning by create an ecosystem around you, and so, taking what people are saying and what people are regurgitating and not understanding what they're saying and kind of breaking it down in a language that people can understand has been what has been working. And I'm seeing it more often now. I'm seeing how a lot of rappers, athletes, celebrities are now having more money conversations, which is opening the door for people like you and I to now take those conversations and expound on them, further. And I think it's a beautiful thing that we're witnessing happening before our eyes.
Yeah, for sure. We do a decoded lyric every Friday.
Yeah.
CapWay. We take somebody's lyric and we break down, like, Kendrick is another one. He drops a lot of financial information in his rhymes. I know, kind of piggybacking off the relatable piece. I know I use the example a lot when I speak about it is one way that we speak investing at CapWay. We don't go into the conversation. It's like, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation about the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's trying to hear that. But if I come in and I say, let's talk about how many pair of Nike shoes do you have? It's like, I got some Nikes, got some LeBrons, got some J's. Yeah. So how much did you pay for your last pair of Nike shoes? I paid like $220, like $250. I've heard some higher numbers that I'm too frugal to pay for.
Right, true.
You get the numbers. Yeah. And I was like, so, you could have bought like 2 or 3 shares of Nike with that.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how many times I do this conversation in different areas,
mm-hmm.
there's always going to be at least 3 people in the room that's going to be like, eyes get big. It's like, wait, I could have bought shares of Nike.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of people would just be honest and say, hey, stock market's for like rich white people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's literally what a lot of people just say right at the gate.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, like a share of Nike is like $88. Like, you could have bought a share of Nike. So, and all the years that you spent $10,000 on your shoes, you could have been, and taking some of that money and investing in the stock market. So it's interesting though, just to see when you break it down and you talk to people in a common language, like how well they get it. And I think that's something that has been missing a lot from getting people to the point of really understanding money and that financial language that makes sense. And I think another thing that we see a lot at CapWay is we talk about the fact that it's just really uncomfortable to have these conversations.
Yes.
It's like, and we always say, like, we trying to have like some uncomfortable conversations, but in comfortable settings, because it's really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know about New York, but in the South, the saying was, what happens in this house stays in this house. So like, you don't, our lights can be off, but only people in the house better know the lights off. Nobody on the outside. So I think it's also important to start having like just uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
From what you've been doing, how have you been? I know the books you have, but how have you taken that step outside of, definitely relatable with the lyrics in different ways? How have you seen, or the first step in having those uncomfortable situations?
Yeah, I think really it's allowing people to self-discover and to self-reflect, right? Meaning that, there's been times in the past where I've tried to kind of approach it and have a uncomfortable conversation by me being the person to bring it up. But a lot of times, again, because it's uncomfortable, it's like, how do you bring it up? And so really it's about self-discovery. So when someone comes to you and they're asking for your help, or, you're having a conversation, or whether it's, doing something within a group setting, it's really important to have them self-discover, ask them about their finances. How are they currently managing them? How do they feel about those finances? Is there things that they could do, differently? Really just kind of asking those 5 why questions to kind of dig deeper and deeper and deeper until they realize, like, oh, I need to do stuff different. Like, oh, this is not working out. And to be honest though, now that we're in a pandemic, right? now that we've seen 45 million jobs being lost, now that we see the civil unrest and things are going haywire, I think the conversations around money are now going to be easier to have. They're not going to be as uncomfortable because, you know, now when we start talking about, you know, why somebody needs multiple streams of income, there's no longer going to be this, we're not going to theorize if an emergency happens. We know that when emergency happened, right, like everybody had to go through COVID-19 in 2020. And so now I think those conversations are going to be a little more those uncomfortable conversations. You have no choice now, right? You can't choose whether you want to have the comfortable or uncomfortable conversation. Now you have to have the conversation because you lived through it. We all lived through it. And now it's not theory, right? Yeah. Now it's facts. Now it's real life. And now let's get you in a position to kind of move forward.
It's like we've all been put into a group setting, not by choice.
Yes.
Because what I found is when I have one-on-one conversations, we get there, but sometimes like it takes a while to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But in a group setting, surprisingly, once that one person is honest, then everybody in the group is like, wait, I'm not the only one. Like, well, for a minute, like, you know, I thought I was the only person here that, you know, was living paycheck to paycheck. And I realized like half of the room is living paycheck to paycheck. And then the conversation, you know, it becomes more. So.
And I wanted to say a point to that, right? I think especially for us, for Black and brown people, for some reason, we are embarrassed around financial situation and issues, not realizing that it's everybody.
It's
right?
everybody.
Like the average American doesn't have $400, right? The average American, that means Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. The average American does not have $400 to, you know, to overcome an emergency. And I think that if we would realize that, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you irresponsible. Like I know people who, like you said, make six figures who are living paycheck to paycheck. When I was a private banker, if you make $1 million and you are spending $1,001, you're not a millionaire. Exactly. And you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're one mistake away from poverty, right? And that happens in real life. And I think that as people, you know, realize that and have these more candid conversations, they'll realize that it's not just them, and that sense of shame, you know, sort of lowers. Which is why, like, this is you know, again, this is not like one of those situations that I'm like, oh, I'm celebrating that COVID-19 happened, but since it's here, it's one of those things where, you know, that shame should be lowered because everybody's going through it at the same time, you know?
Yeah. You know, at CapWay, we speak a lot about being financially underserved. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because a lot of people they automatically connect financially underserved to like being poor. Right. And I was like, no, like that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, you can be financially underserved and you know, be lower to moderate income, but being financially underserved does not equate to you being poor. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of his name, but this is not my quote, but I saw a tweet and the tweet said, America has fooled us all. Mm-hmm. Everybody is middle class until they lose their job.
Big facts.
And I was like,
big facts.
Yeah. Because if you ask the average American, once again, like you said, no matter what race, you ask the average American, they're going to tell you I'm middle class.
Right. Yeah.
And then we lose that job, and it's like we're all like, how the hell am I going to pay my bills next month?
Exactly.
But you know, the definition of this you're supposed to have, was it 3 to 6 months?
Yep, 3 to 6 months of expenses, right? And I also, you know, you gotta, you know, in the words of Jay-Z, you gotta merrily eat off your streams. You have to have multiple streams, and I think that's, for me, the biggest thing that I teach to people, that, you know, you should have, you know, even if you have a 9 to 5, you should have some type of, you know, side hustle. You should be investing something, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, if you're reliant on just one source of income, you're literally like, you're committing economic suicide, because again, you're just one paycheck away. And so, yeah, definitely, you know, we have to start focusing on that as well, monetizing our gifts and focusing on, you know, having that more than one income, for sure.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the average millionaire has the seven
sources of income. Absolutely.
So yeah, it's not just, you know, and people tell you I have my 9 to 5, but the minute I'm off at 5 o'clock, like I'm on to
that 5 to 9.
I'm on to the next one.
Yep.
So that's for sure. So you're not gonna be off the hook. So you got to give us a bar or 2 or 3.
A bar. I see that. All right. I don't know if I give you a bar. All right. So I give you a let me see. You gotta say. I just don't have the flow anymore. But you gotta save your money. Stop trying to do it the fast way. I'm on this IG live, Ash Cash, and the CEO of CapWay. We're talking about the assets over liabilities. You got to make sure that you take care of your priorities.
I'll take it.
That's all I got. That's all I got. That's all I got.
So
that's all I got.
There's 2 ways I like to end the shows. One is when I started this company, when I started CapWay, the whole point of starting CapWay was I wanted to create an entire different system for banking. I wanted to create it for people who just did not fit in with traditional banking, whether that was I'm not with the fees, whether that's the 10,000 bank branches have closed since the Great Recession. So maybe most of the banks in my area have closed down. So of course, I'm trying to look for something else. And of course, millennials know we want to do everything from our phone, but giving them, a type of bank that they want to bank with from their phone. I always ask my guests, if you could be part of CapWay and you could say, hey, make sure you have this for the people, what would you say that it is?
Yeah, I would say, already you have, you're giving them financial education, right? So I would say make sure you have a system that, number one, educates the people, but then also a system that will allow them to make managing money easier, right? And so, and what I mean by that is a lot of times we can't trust ourselves, right? And so are there mechanisms that allow you to automate your finances so that you're, like for instance, can there be a way to create that side account that is hidden from their profile that automatically each week money gets transferred to that side account, but then they don't see it? So that way they could still be building that 6 to 8 months of expenses without having to physically do it. So I say, build a system that could also help them or trick them almost to manage their money the right way.
I like that. Yeah, I asked that question, and I think
if you do it though, you gotta give me credit.
No, I might name it after you. But I asked that question, not honestly, not to steal ideas. I asked that question because I feel like once you get into the banking system, they stop asking people.
I agree.
We all know, especially because we're fintech, so we're financial technology. In technology, you always know, like, your customers are everything. Like, if nobody's down on the app, if nobody's banking with you, you don't exist. And so it's just really, really important to me as a founder that I keep my feet on the ground and I'm asking people, like, what do you need? Like, why are you going to use CapWay versus Wells Fargo? Or why are you going to use CapWay versus your local credit union? Like, what can we do that's going to make life easier for you or lead you to financial health? Because that's one of the biggest issues I think that we're having is millennials and Gen Z were already pretty much being told Social Security ain't going to happen for us.
Be there. Yeah.
So, how can we got to make a change somewhere. So that's just a super important thing to me as a founder. So the second thing that we do before we end is.
But wait, salute to you though, right? Like let's not glaze over that. Salute to you for being a Black woman, right? Founder of a fintech bank. That's huge. And so y'all in the comments, y'all need to put the thumbs up. Y'all need to clap, put the hearts up. Like that's huge. That's huge. So salute to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a conversation earlier this week with one of the founders of a Black-owned bank, one of the traditional Black-owned banks, and it was hard having that conversation because Black-owned banks they've done as much as they can.
Yeah.
And he's just like, we're dying off. I think they're down to 15 now. Wow. It was 19 last year. I think they're down to 15 now. And he's like, we don't have that money. We don't have the resources to go hire, developers at $250,000 a year, or even $125,000 a year. Yeah. And, as you know, millennials, we do everything from our phone. We don't walk to branches. Like, only time I walk into a branch if it's for business. I don't walk in for personal reasons. Right. And what I told him was, you have so many people who say, hey, I want to bank black, but black banks have never been able to grow outside of like being in just one state or in just one region. And so I take pride in that. I take pride in saying, hey, no matter where you are, like, we still care about who you are and you can bank with us. Yeah. So that's been really important to me from the very beginning. So appreciate it. Much, much appreciated. So the second thing that we do before we end is you have to give us a hack. So example of a hack is budget billing. So, hey, tell people, if you take your last 12 months of your utility bill, they can actually make it where like they make for the same amount for the next few months. So you know exactly how much you're going to pay. So we always ask people to give us a hack. I think our last person gave us, was it Bill Shark, where you can go where they can help lower your bills. So you have to give us a hack. Leave us with a hack.
Yeah. So this is what I'm going to leave you with. Right. And so similar to what I said, around savings, is that in my experience, out of sight, out of mind has worked tremendously. And so one hack is that, it's important that whoever you bank, your main bank, make sure, and I'm telling everybody who's on here now, who's going to watch it later, open an account at CapWay, make CapWay where you're going to keep that emergency stash, right? And so every time you get any type of money, I want you to take 10% and put it in that CapWay bank, right? Put it in that CapWay account, allow it to stack automatically, out of sight, out of mind, and allow that money to stack. Don't, constantly look at the balance, because when you see the balance, automatically you're going to think, oh, you know what? Macy's has a buy one, get one sale. I got money at create a system that you automatically, open this account, allow that money to go automatically into the CapWay account, and let it sit, let it stack. And then as it's stacking, just out of sight, out of mind, and allow yourself to create that 6 to 8 months of expenses. That's my hack.
That was a nice hack and a nice plug. So I appreciate it. Much appreciate it. Yes. Let the people know where they can find you. How do we contact you? How do we get a book? I'm definitely going to order some books after this. Yes. So let us know.
Yeah, so very simple. If you go to ashcashbooks.com, that's how you could get books. You can follow me here on Instagram. I am Ash Cash. You can DM me, message me. But go to iamashcash.com is my main website, and everything is there. My books, everything will be on iamashcash.com.
All right, you have a show.
Yes, so I do have a show. So every Monday through Friday, the Ash Cash Show, we're live. We simulcast. And so we go live every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, also on IG Live. If you go to ashcashtv.com, then you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, but then also go to the ashcashshow.com where you could subscribe to the podcast.
All right, I want you to be able to answer this question before we get off. Of your books, which book do you recommend they start with?
Yeah, the Wake Up Call is the book, right? So the Wake Up Call, Financial Lessons Learned from 444 is definitely the book that'll take you from a financial education space, from how do you sustain yourself individually up to how do you create generational wealth for your kids and your kids' kids. So I would start with the Wake Up Call, Financial Lessons Learned from 444.
Dope. Ash, thank you so much. This was wonderful. The info, the gems, amazing. I knew you was going to do it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Did not disappoint at all. So I much appreciate it.
Yes.
Everybody that stayed, that checked it out, hope you got a lot of great information. Hope you were able to take something amazing away from this session. So once again, thank you so much, Ash. I will be in touch.
Yes.
I'm getting the books. Trust
me.
Yes,
thank you. Thank you.
The books.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful night.
Thank you.